Hello everyone, for those of you who don't know Evan Centopani, he is an IFBB professional bodybuilder with a pretty impressive competitive history. He's placed first at the New York Pro, he's placed 8th at the Mr. Olympia, so he can out-angle the best of them. But unfortunately, he has absolutely no idea of what he's talking about when it comes to nutrition, yet he likes to speak as if he was some kind of authority on the topic. So Evan is sponsored by the supplement company Animal. Animal happens to have their own YouTube channel where on one video they featured Evan, and the video topic was getting bigger, what foods Evan likes to eat to, be a big bodybuilder. But there was one portion of this video that I found particularly troubling, problematic, and it was where Evan was talking about cholesterol, so I figured I'd just skip to the section of this video where Evan makes some ridiculous pseudoscientific claims about cholesterol and just rebut each of his claims point by point.
You get such a better result eating a whole egg because those fats that are in the yolk, all that cholesterol and stuff, a lot of you guys out there, probably based on a lot of misinformation you've heard over the years, you've probably been told to be afraid of cholesterol. That's total crap.
Now, I'm not saying this to criticize Evan as a person. I think he's an adult. He can do whatever he wants with his own body. But you have to recognize that this guy's sense of risk management is a little wonky. He's obviously taking very high doses of anabolic steroids. He's almost certainly getting those steroids off of the illicit market. So not only is this guy buying illegal drugs, he's getting these drugs from unreputable sources, so they could be tainted with something, they could be dirty, they're not sterilized properly, they could give him an infection, and he's taking very high doses of these drugs, which are well known to cause a number of health issues, including issues with your heart health, and he's telling you not to worry about something. This dude very obviously doesn't give much of a about his own health, so maybe you shouldn't trust him when he makes any kind of health claims.
Cholesterol is technically a steroid hormone upon which testosterone and other sex hormones are built.
So that's true. Cholesterol is used to produce steroid hormones in your body, and in fact all steroid hormones are made from cholesterol. But what Evan didn't tell you is that there are a number of different steroid hormones besides testosterone, some of which you do not want to have elevated, including estrogen. Estrogen is a steroid hormone, and if you get elevated estrogen levels, that can cause a number of negative side effects. That can lower your testosterone levels, it can decrease your energy, sex drive, give you depression, it can increase your risk of certain forms of cancer, make you grow breast tissue. So I think Evan doesn't actually understand what a steroid is. He just associated the term steroid with testosterone, not realizing that there are a number of other steroids besides testosterone. So if he's going to make this claim that eating dietary cholesterol will raise your steroid levels because cholesterol is a precursor to these steroids, well, then why is he assuming that dietary cholesterol will only raise your testosterone, the steroids that you want elevated? Why wouldn't it also elevate things like estrogen? So, doesn't exactly make sense, does it?
Cholesterol is technically a steroid hormone upon which testosterone and other sex hormones are built. So without adequate amounts of it in your system, you're not going to be quite so anabolic.
So again, Evan is going off of this idea that cholesterol is the precursor to the steroid hormones. So if you eat more cholesterol, if you have higher levels of cholesterol in your blood, you'll be able to produce more testosterone and therefore make more gains. Well, of course, there's absolutely no evidence for this, and in fact, there's evidence suggesting that the exact opposite of what he claims is true. So this study found that despite vegans having the lowest cholesterol levels, they had the highest total testosterone levels. What's also interesting about the study was that despite vegans having higher total testosterone levels, their levels of free testosterone were still the same due to producing more sex hormone binding globulin. And this highlights another issue with Evan's theory. Even if this idea were true, that if you eat more cholesterol, you'll produce more testosterone, it isn't true, but even if we could grant that it was true for the sake of argument, that wouldn't matter because your body has homeostatic mechanisms. It doesn't want these levels of sex hormones, these steroids, going too high. So chances are, even if you did manage to elevate your testosterone levels by eating more eggs or whatever, your body would just compensate for it by shutting down testosterone production in the testes or producing more sex hormone binding globulin. And Evan should know about this homeostatic mechanism that your body has with regulating hormone levels. He takes steroids, and he should know that when you take steroids, your body will shut down hormone production. So really doesn't make any sense that he's pushing this theory about cholesterol and testosterone. And of course, the authors concluded that there is no association between cholesterol and circulating concentrations of these androgens, and there are other studies, there are other case reports showing people with remarkably low cholesterol levels, but they're in perfectly good health. This one case report was on a retired U.S. Navy chaplain. His doctors noted that he was in remarkably good health despite having an LDL cholesterol score of 4 to 8 milligrams per deciliter. That's roughly 10 times lower than what's considered healthy. So I'd really like to know where Evan got this cholesterol and testosterone idea from, because he sure as hell didn't get it from any scientific sources, and from top to bottom it doesn't make any sense. Testosterone isn't the only steroid hormone, so I don't know why you'd assume cholesterol would only increase the steroid hormone testosterone. There's evidence showing that even if you do increase testosterone levels, well, guess what? Your body has homeostatic mechanisms that would just compensate for that by shutting down testosterone production or increasing sex hormone binding globulin, and there just plain isn't any evidence showing that cholesterol is at all associated with testosterone. So it sounds like Evan just pulled this idea out of his ass because it sounded cool and he wanted it to be true, but he didn't actually care if it was actually true, which is a little disappointing.
Not to mention the fact that from a health perspective, the link between dietary consumption of cholesterol and blood levels of cholesterol and heart disease, any evidence of such a link has pretty much been shown to not even exist.
And of course, the exact opposite of what Evan Centopani said is true. So I'd recommend taking a look at this meta-analysis of metabolic wart experiments. What makes this meta-analysis unique is that they accounted for baseline together with added dietary cholesterol intake, and what they found was that the relationship between baseline cholesterol intake, added dietary cholesterol, and the responding change in serum cholesterol concentrations followed a hyperbolic curve, where if you already eat a high cholesterol diet, adding any more cholesterol to your diet would result in a negligible change to your serum cholesterol score. However, if you have a very low cholesterol intake, adding more cholesterol to your diet would result in a very significant change to your serum cholesterol score. So this is where a lot of the confusion on cholesterol comes from. There was a lot of bad research published where the researchers didn't account for baseline cholesterol intake of the study participants, so they got study participants who were already eating a lot of cholesterol, and when they fed them more cholesterol, there wasn't a significant change in their serum cholesterol concentrations, and then the authors wrongfully reported that dietary cholesterol doesn't significantly impact serum cholesterol. But if you account for that, if you design a study where study participants are eating zero cholesterol at the beginning of the study, then dietary cholesterol does have a significant impact on your serum cholesterol score. So in short, dietary cholesterol does in fact raise your serum cholesterol score. There was also another huge meta-analysis of 395 metabolic wart experiments where, again, they found that both saturated fat and cholesterol did significantly elevate serum cholesterol concentration. So there's no arguing this. dietary cholesterol and saturated fat elevate your cholesterol score. And is this a risk factor for heart disease? Yes, it absolutely is. I'd recommend this huge paper by the European Atherosclerosis Society. And what they found was that separate meta-analyses of over 200 prospective cohort studies, Mendelian randomization studies, and randomized trials including more than 2 million participants with over 20 million person-years of follow-up and over 150,000 cardiovascular events demonstrate a remarkably consistent dose-dependent log-linear association between the absolute magnitude of exposure of the vasculature to LDL-C and the risk of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. And again, I have no idea why Evan is making these ridiculous claims suggesting that the link between cholesterol and heart disease has been debunked when that's obviously not the consensus among experts. Evan clearly isn't an expert himself, and there are major papers that were recently published debunking this idea that, oh, cholesterol, there's no link between cholesterol and heart disease. Guess what? There is. And by eating eggs, by eating saturated fat, you are increasing your risk of heart disease, Evan. So if you care about that sort of thing, if you care about your heart health, stop eating these high cholesterol foods, stop eating these foods that are high in saturated fat. They are not doing anything for you. They're not going to boost your testosterone. They're not going to help you be a better athlete. They're just going to put you in the grave that much sooner. So if you like this video, maybe consider supporting me on Patreon or through my website. If you're looking for clothing, then check out the Vegan Gain store. And as always, keep making those vegan and low cholesterol gains.
What a relief! When will this poisonous product cease? This is another public service announcement. You can believe it or you can doubt it. Let us begin now with the cow. The way it gets to your plate and how